What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Every time I start to record, I wish I could, I'm gonna take a picture. Every time I record a video, this is what I see. How do I not, like, look at that face. Do I not get him up here? Now he's gonna lick his butt. All right, come on, Pete. Get up here. How is everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing fantastic. I'm in a pretty good mood today. I just got off vacation. It was nice. I hadn't had a vacation in about a year, but I legit gained 10 pounds on my vacation. This is full disclosure right here of how just much of a disgusting human being I am. This was my vacation. Somebody asked me, how was my vacation? I just say, yes. None of my pants fit me. All my shirts are too small. Pete is ashamed of me. I'm ashamed of myself. Starting November, Justin's gonna get in shape. That's so douchey. No more third person talking. I think everybody's kind of been hibernating a little bit during the quarantine, so I'm gonna give myself a pass. Is anybody else struggling with that this past year? Just eating at an alarming rate? So I gotta get back in shape. Anyway, let's start the video. Today I'm going to do something that I've seen other people do. This isn't a groundbreaking idea, but I wanted to talk about what I've been watching because instead of just doing a single movie review or talking about one or two movies, doing these letterbox, what I've watched kind of gives an opportunity to start discussions about a bunch of movies. I love talking about movies, of course. Definitely let me know what you guys think of any of these movies that I'm going to talk about, but this would be a fun way for me to talk about a bunch of movies that I probably wouldn't devote a whole video to or talk about. And when I started this channel, of course I wanted to do physical media and stuff. I love physical media and talking about collecting and Blu-rays and 4K and all that stuff, but I really wanted to talk about just movies in general more and do more movie reviews. So that is my goal going forward, is to talk about more individual movies and do more deep dives into movies. I've done it a couple times with Butt Boy and Showgirls, and I've done a handful of movie reviews, Beach House, and things like that, but I want to talk more about individual movies. So going forward, I'm going to do a lot more in-depth movie reviews. But this month has been a challenge doing the videos every day. Like I said yesterday, I love doing it, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to do as many deep dives and research into certain things. You kind of just have to go day by day and just keep it moving. That's why I've been doing a lot of collection videos and unboxings and things like that. So today I want to talk about what I've been watching in September and October, and hopefully give you guys some good recommendations, because I have watched a lot of cool stuff. I've seen some stinky dog shit too in between that, but I have seen a lot of cool things. We're just going to dive into what I've been watching, and definitely let me know in the comments below if you guys saw any of this. I'm really anxious to hear your opinions on these movies. So first, we're starting in September. Maniac. Let's see, back in early September. Now, I watched the remake of Maniac. Now, I really enjoyed this remake. I had only seen the original one time, so I know there's a lot of opinions on these remakes of older movies, especially movies like Evil Dead and Suspiria and movies like that. I totally get the criticism for these modern remakes. I totally get that criticism. I really do. But being that I didn't hold the original super near and dear to my heart, I'd only seen it once, I found this, the Elijah Wood produced and acted remake, to be fantastic. Super creepy. It was all POV with the exception of some like shots of him in the mirror. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will recommend the Maniac remake. Basically, it's a slasher, kind of more serial killer movie than just a straight up slasher movie. But I don't know, I do a lot of weird shit with my hand. I need to watch out with this hand. This thing goes crazy sometimes. But it's a different take on this because there's a little more depth to the character with his history with his mother and some weird hang-ups he has. But I highly recommend the remake. Elijah Wood is fantastic in Maniac. It's awesome. Next up is Guest House. I'm a big Pauly Shore fan. I'm a 90s guy. If you watch any of my past videos, you'll see I have a little bit of a soft spot for the 90s nostalgia. I liked Guest House. He's been in a bunch of random things, Pauly Shore, in the past few years, but this seemed to be like him kind of trying to go back to the Weasel type stuff that he did in the 90s. If you're not familiar with Pauly Shore, he did movies like Son-in-Law and Encino Man and Jury Duty and all those movies, and I was just a huge fan of those. Biodome. I was a big fan of Pauly Shore. I think in the growing up in the 90s, everybody was a fan of Pauly Shore back in the day. He was just everywhere. You couldn't escape Pauly Shore. I actually really enjoyed Guest House. Was it groundbreaking? Was it the best comedy I've ever seen? Is it like Superbad or Old School or Step Brothers or any of those movies? No. But it was really funny. And there's a lot of stand-up comedians that frequent the Comedy Store. If you follow a lot of the comedy podcasts, I'm a big fan of like Tiger Belly and Your Mom's House and all those podcasts. So you got to see. It was cool to see Bobby Lee in the movie. It was a fun little watch. I enjoyed Guest House. You might dig it if you like really dumb, kind of vulgar comedies. Next, I Spit on Your Grave. This was the remake of I Spit on Your Grave. And I'm not going to talk too much about these, but I'm going to let you guys know I am going to deep dive these remakes and these rape revenge movies. This movie, and particularly the remake sequel, I Spit on Your Grave 2, really left just a bad taste in my mouth. I was not a huge fan of these movies. I think they're kind of pointless to watch. I don't think there's much enjoyment out of these movies. I'm all for slasher. I'm not even against the torture porn movies. I'm a big fan of Hostel and Saw and those type of movies, but I think there's a way to get to those fun gore, those goregasm scenes and those awesome, just brutal torture porn type of scenes without watching a 15-minute unnecessary, gratuitous, graphic, horrible rape scene. Like, I think that you can watch a slasher movie, you can watch a Saw movie, you can watch those torture porn movies without having to endure watching a girl raped and tortured for 10, 15 minutes while a group of guys laugh and think it's just amazing. And a lot of people will say, I mean, that's just how she gets the revenge, and that's the whole thing. She gets her revenge. And it's like, I get it. Not my thing. I know a lot of people, that is their thing. It's not for me. I don't criticize anybody's taste in movies. I'm not going to say these movies shouldn't be made or they should be censored. I just don't dig it. It's not my thing. I didn't dig I Spit on Your Grave. Rambo, Last Blood. Now this is a movie that I actually did enjoy, and I was not expecting to enjoy Rambo, Last Blood as much as I did. I had put it off. This came out, I don't know, when did Rambo come out? It came out in 2019. And I didn't bother seeing it until when I watched it this 15th of this year, of September. This movie is straight to the point, quick setup. It's a revenge story. I'm not going to give away any plot details, but it's very basic as far as... I'm going to turn this AC off. I left that heater on the whole last video and it was so loud. It'll shut off in a minute. A really quick setup that gives Rambo a reason to go out and just fucking slaughter a bunch of people, and that's what he does in this movie. Quick setup, and this movie, I'll tell you what, if you were on the fence of watching Rambo just because you're not into action movies, if you're more of a horror guy, this movie has more gore than 50% of the horror movies that I've watched this year. Rambo, Sylvester Stallone is fucking popping people's collarbones out. He's fucking them up. It's brutal. This movie is insanely gory and violent and brutal. It's a fun watch. If you just want a dumb movie, I hate the term turn your brain off, but if you do want to do that, just put on a fun action movie. This movie is the one. It's so much fun. It's gory as shit. It's quick to the point. There's not a lot of story. The runtime is really short. It's 89 minutes, so it's under an hour and a half. I recommend Rambo Last Blood. It's a lot of fun. And I actually found myself getting in my feels a little bit, too, to be quite honest with you. I'm going to turn on this Do Not Disturb here. And the story is enough to where it's not too much plot, but I actually found myself like getting a little teared up at a couple points in time because it's a well-made movie. For how dumb it is, it's pretty well made. Next up, a rewatch was Ready or Not, Samara Weaving and Ready or Not. If you have not seen this movie is so much fun. What a good time Ready or Not is. If you haven't seen it, a really quick setup: a girl is getting married into this guy. His family is super rich, and they have a process or a tradition they do. If somebody gets married in the family, you have to play a game. You draw a card. You could pull a card that indicates that you have to play Goldfish or Old Maid or whatever. And if you pull a certain card, it ain't good, and it puts you in a really bad spot. And nobody's drawn this certain card for years and years. And she doesn't draw the right card, but it is so much fun. And Samara Weaving is so charming, and I see big things in Samara Weaving's future. She was just in Bill and Ted. She was in the Babysitter sequel and the first Babysitter, which was the first thing that I saw Samara Weaving in. She's fantastic. Big things coming up for her. She's great. She's from Australia. Really, really charming actress. She was in a movie called Guns Akimbo with Daniel Radcliffe, which was batshit crazy, where Daniel Radcliffe gets guns attached to his, like, screwed to his hands. Really fun movie. Next up, Enemy from Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune. This was a movie that I had no idea what to expect when I was watching this movie. I just knew I was a big fan of the director. Jake Gyllenhaal is fantastic, and I didn't have any idea what this movie was about. I watched it. It is not at all what I expected, but beautifully directed. It's a really small but interesting story. There's only a couple characters about a guy and his wife. And he basically, without giving away too much of the story, he sees somebody in a movie that looks exactly like him. And he tries to track this person down, and it goes into different things that you will not expect. It's fantastic. I highly recommend Enemy. I'm being so vague because first of all, it's really hard to explain. A lot of it's ambiguous, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I would highly recommend, if you're into kind of strange, cerebral, think piece type movies with amazing, I hate the term visuals too, but really cool imagery, and it's a really visual movie. It's really, really cool. Interesting movie, Enemy. Next up, a movie called Rent-A-Pal, which this movie is a top recommendation for me. See, I gave this one 3.5 stars. What an interesting movie this movie was. It stars Will Wheaton. Of course, he was in Stand By Me and a bunch of other stuff, but it's a guy, kind of a lonely guy. He lives with his mom, and it takes place in like the late 80s, early 90s, and he lives with his mom who has dementia. He's kind of a sad guy, lives in his basement, spends a lot of time alone, and decides to do a dating service. Now, back in the day, before Tinder and all that shit, there was actual, you'd go to the mall and you would film yourself and make a dating tape. It's really wild how they used to do this, but you know, you gotta meet people, so that's how they did it in the late 80s and stuff. But at the place where he goes to make his dating profile tape, he literally sits in front of a camera just like this and says, "My name's whatever, and I'm into fishing and walking on the beach," or whatever the fuck it is. And you make your profile, and other people see it, and hopefully somebody likes you and they request to meet you. But while he's at this place where he's recording his profile, he sees a tape called Rent-A-Pal. It's really sad. My dog's eating a sock right now. I guess that's good. Socks taste good? Okay. And he sees a tape called Rent-A-Pal, and you put it in the VCR, and it's literally Will Wheaton acting like he's talking to you, like, "How's it going?" And you're having a conversation with an imaginary friend through a VHS tape, and he eventually like memorizes the entire tape and continues to have the same conversation with him over and over again, and it kind of goes into a little descent into madness. Again, I'm not going to spoil any of these movies. Watch the trailer if you dig it. I would highly recommend Rent-A-Pal. It has a crazy ending. It's really sad. It is a goofy kind of premise, but it takes itself fairly seriously, and you take the characters seriously. It's so well acted that the silly aspects of what, you know, the movie's kind of based on don't seem that silly after you start getting into the movie, because it's just so well made. Rent-A-Pal. I highly recommend Rent-A-Pal. Next up, The Greasy Strangler from 2016. This was actually produced by Elijah Wood. To anybody who hasn't heard of The Greasy Strangler, me attempting to describe this movie will not do it injustice. Basically, it's like a bizarro serial killer Tim and Eric version of Napoleon Dynamite. It's very abstract and weird and bizarre, but at its basic core, the story technically is a father and son who live together. His dad is obsessed with grease. Okay, he wants everything to be cooked in heavy amounts of grease. He'll tell his son, it's not greasy enough, more grease.
I'm making these bacon rolls real greasy, Dad.
Bullshit, artist.
Am not.
Bullshit. You make this the greasiest feast since that goose you cooked on Christmas.
And at night he goes out, douses himself in grease, and strangles people. And in between those killing scenes and those gore scenes are scenes that are even more bizarre. These weird vignettes with these side characters.
I thought free drinks were included in this tour.
No! There's no free drinks. I don't know where you got that idea.
It said in the brochure.
The information you got is bullshit.
We don't need even fizzy drinks. Just water would be enough.
This movie is insane. Napoleon Dynamite, if directed by Tim and Eric and on acid, it's just insane. Words cannot describe Greasy Strangler. I was actually going to shoot a vlog where I showed my family this movie because it's so strange and I just wanted to get their reactions watching this movie. And I actually shot that, but I haven't edited it. Maybe I will. Check out The Greasy Strangler. If you're into super bizarre, strange movies that are way left of center, most people will not like this movie, but if you're into weird stuff, check out The Greasy Strangler. It's one of my favorite movies. Next up, I Spit on Your Grave 2. Basically echo everything I said about I Spit on Your Grave 1. I think this movie is just... I don't recommend I Spit on Your Grave 2. Next up, Patchwork is a super homage to the 80s throwback style body horror, science fiction, weird movies. It's basically a real homage to Stuart Gordon and Frank Henenlotter. It's really reminiscent of like Reanimator and Frankenhooker. It pays major homage to those. It's a kind of a horror comedy with a super unique premise. Without giving too much away, I don't want to be too vague on these movies, but I want to be able to tell you enough to let you know if you want to see it or not. Basically, these guys perform an experiment on these 3 girls and put their body parts together, almost Frankenstein style, but their collective consciousness is inside of, all 3 of their collective consciousness are inside this one body. And it's shot in a super interesting way to where it is in one body, this patchwork Frankenstein body, but the way they film all the consciousness is they'll put them all in a room together. So you'll know that they're all talking because it'll appear that they're all in the room talking together, but really it's all taking place in her head. It's super gory, it's super weird, kind of hard to explain, but if you dig Reanimator, Basket Case, Frankenhooker, those movies, you will love this movie. It's really great. Next up, Circle, which was a Netflix original movie. This was a really interesting movie. I gave it 2 stars. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of, it was interesting enough to hold my attention. But basically, these people wake up and they're in a room and they have to make choices. It's a group of like 50 people, and themselves as a group, there can only be one person left at the end of the session. So they kind of decide who they need to kill, and one by one they turn on each other, and one person is killed one at a time. It's a really interesting movie. It's not perfect, but it's interesting enough that I would recommend watching it for a lazy day. House of the Devil West. Now this was a really interesting movie. This movie actually kind of blew me away. It's been around, it came out in 2009. It's a major throwback, slow burn 70s mystery horror movie. I will say in traditional Thai West style, or is it Thai West or Ti West? Basically, a girl gets a kind of random invitation to babysit at a house, but it seems really sketchy. She's not sure if she should do it, but she really needs the money. So she goes over to the house to do a babysitting job, and things unfold in a really bizarrely way. Now, I will say this is a movie, it's really slow to get going. but it is such a throwback to 70s thrillers. The lead actress is gorgeous, and it's really insanely well acted. Again, I don't mean to be too vague on all these movies, but if you are into really kind of slow burn 70s mystery thrillers, you will really dig this movie. It took some turns that I wasn't expecting. It's not insanely gory all the way through or anything like that. There's a couple good kills, but it's really kind of a mystery thriller that doesn't give you everything until more towards the end. There's a lot of long shots. It's really suspenseful, almost like a Black Christmas or When a Stranger Calls, kind of that style of movie. But if you're into throwback 70s horror movies, you'll really dig this. He did a really amazing job recreating that 70s film grain vibe. I believe this was filmed in 16 millimeter. So it really looks like it's straight out of the late 70s, early 80s. I really enjoyed House of the Devil. It's really good slow burn horror movie. Next up, The Lie. This was one of these Blumhouse movies that they put out. Welcome to Blumhouse, that all dropped on Hulu or Amazon, one or the other. I get the impression that these were all movies that were kind of shelved because of the pandemic. These are a bunch of these movies that would probably be released on, like, in January in the theaters. They're not. I've watched Nocturne and I've watched The Lie. Basically, at the beginning of the movie, a father and her dad are going to a dance recital. Pete, no. Get out of the clothes basket. A daughter and her father are on the way to a dance recital, and they see one of the girl's friends at a bus stop waiting to catch a ride, so they pick her up. They stop to go to the bathroom, and they go off to the side of the road, and the two girls get into an argument. Something happens, and you don't really know exactly what happens to one of the girls. I'm going to keep it really ambiguous. And the rest of the movie is them dealing with the consequences of what happened at the beginning of the movie. I will say, the end of the movie, it tied up really nicely in a way I wasn't expecting. I'll say that. It's a mystery thriller. It's not great, but it wasn't bad either. Well acted, decent little movie. Hellhouse LLC. Now, this was a good found footage. I hadn't seen a good found footage movie in quite some time, and this movie actually really surprised me. It's about a group of friends who take over this abandoned house to make a haunted house. They kind of, every year they make their haunted house, and I think that's kind of how they make their money for the year, was making this big, elaborate haunted house. Now, I had heard good things about Hellhouse LLC. Found footage movies can really honestly be hit or miss depending on how much you enjoy found footage. I ended up really being surprised with Hellhouse LLC. It's a really well-crafted found footage movie. It's well acted, it's well shot, but it's a really good ghost story, satanic vibes kind of cult movie. I don't want to give away too much, so I'm not going to talk about it. If you like found footage movies, this is definitely in the upper echelon of those found footage movies. I recommend it. Hellhouse LLC 2 is a direct continuation of Hell House. I did not care for the sequel. I gave it 1.5 stars. In my opinion, this was a major letdown. A little boring, it dragged, it didn't offer anything. It's like a watered down version of the first movie. I did not get a lot of enjoyment out of the second one. There is a third one. I guess it was a planned trilogy. I didn't get a lot out of the second one. I'm gonna put it that way. All right, Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. You know, this was a pretty interesting movie. This is a movie I'd seen that has been kicked around for years. It came out in 2006, which was it was kind of one of those. At the time this movie came out, they really weren't doing a lot of these type of meta slashers like they were in the late 90s. I would compare this movie a lot in tone, and I would compare it to Scream. And I Know What You Did Last Summer. They kind of fall into that same category, but it's not the same type of thing. Basically, it's a faux documentary. A documentary crew is following this guy named Leslie Vernon in his journey to become an infamous slasher serial killer. So they're kind of like, so how do you prepare? How do you pick your victims? And he's like, well, you know, this is what I do. I got to have the pretty teenage girl, and she's got to have the stereotypical boyfriend. So all the tropes that you see in all these horror movies are kind of explained as if all these things have kind of always been a plan by all these different slasher killer guys. Like, this is how we all do it. All of us do it this way. And it is kind of interesting. So he's like, here's my mask. I gotta look scary when I do my thing, and you know, I gotta stay in good shape. So they show him like kind of working out to get in shape because he's like, you know, I gotta appear that I'm just walking and not running after them. But it's funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. If you're into found footage, faux documentaries, I would compare it kind of to a movie called Man Bites Dog. If anybody's seen that movie, it's I think it's a Belgian or French movie. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. It's got a Criterion release. Same kind of deal where a camera crew follows this serial killer around, and it's really funny, but at the same time, the documentarians are like, he seems nice to them, but at the same time, there's always like a little kind of trepidation, like, is he gonna kill us too and stuff? Like, it's a fun movie. I recommend Behind the Mask: Rise of Leslie Vernon. It got a Scream Factory release at least a year or two ago. Check it out. It's a pretty good watch. The Haunting of Bly Manor. As you can see, I gave this one 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved The Haunting of Hill House. I thought it was one of the most beautiful shows that I had seen in so long. And not only are the characters fantastic, the acting is top notch. The show looks beautiful. Mike Flanagan did it, the same guy who did Dr. Sleep, in a movie called Oculus. He's amazing. This isn't a show for everybody. For some people, they thought it was a little slow or a little boring or predictable. What makes the show work is the characters. It's not a straight horror show. It's not a straight ghost story. They focus a lot on the characters and their inner workings of... The first story is about a family and their kind of family drama and their inner workings, and the ghost story that kind of surrounds that. In the second season, it's The Haunting of Bly Manor. So it's a group of like 2 kids and their uncle and a couple housekeepers, and I'm not going to give anything away. This show blew me away in a way that a show hasn't... this show just knocked me out. It was that good. I know a lot of people have been talking about it, and the Perfectly Splendid meme has been blowing up. This show is just insanely intricate and beautiful and well acted. Now this season kind of really works on the subject of how people become ghosts and how they deal with the ghosts of their past, and how people become how they are, how they develop their fears and their anxieties, what makes them tick, and ultimately what led to their demise and what made them ghosts. Don't go in there expecting a bunch of jump scares and a bunch of horrific, crazy scenes. Now, although there is some really super scary moments, although not as many as in Hill House, this is a kind of a romance, not a romance story. Man, just watch Haunting of Bly Manor. I could talk about Haunting of Bly Manor forever. Just watch it. It's fan-fucking-tastic. Next up was Nocturne. Apparently I have this in here twice. I'm not going to spend a lot of movie talking about this. Sydney Sweeney's in it. She's a fantastic actress. Basically, her and her sister are these up-and-coming violin players, or not violin players, piano players at this prestigious music school. Stereotypical story. One sister overshadows the other, and the other sister is really envious and wants to be as well respected as her sister, and she's not. I would compare this movie to like Whiplash mixed with Black Swan. It's a really good movie, or I'm sorry, it's really well shot. It's well acted, but the story left a lot to be desired. I remember, to give an example of how I felt this way, I got to a point in the movie where there was only 10 minutes left, and I was like, there's only 10 minutes left? Like, nothing happened. I've been watching this movie for an hour and 20 minutes and nothing happened. It's just kind of uneventful, kind of pointless. I don't want to be too harsh on it, but it's not great. It's not a great movie. I don't know if I would recommend it if you're bored and you need something to watch. Maybe. I wouldn't recommend it. Trick or Treat. If you're a fan of this channel and you subscribe, you're probably a big horror fan, and you've seen Trick or Treat. It's, in my opinion, the best like Halloween season fall movie ever, maybe. I watch Hocus Pocus every year. Like, if you have like tradition movies that you're gonna watch every Halloween season, every fall, this needs to be one of them. It's an anthology movie. with the several interwoven stories that kind of connect with this thread of Sam as he kind of walks through each story. He's become kind of a horror icon himself. Watch Trick or Treat. Highly recommend Trick or Treat. Let's see. Next up, Freddy versus... oh, there's the Drum Dums notification. Shout out Drum Dums. Next up, Freddy versus Jason. I've been diving into all these movies in the Friday the 13th box set. This movie was a little okay. It jumped the shark in a couple aspects with the CGI and the tone. It just didn't really feel authentically like a Jason or Freddy movie. They tried to... the idea of Freddy kind of manipulating Jason to help him get back into people's fear and stuff was pretty cool, but ultimately the story just didn't work for me. Freddy, in my opinion, was underutilized. They kind of made Jason this kind of like, this dumb kind of oaf. It was okay. I didn't hate it. The gore was really good. Some of the scenes in it were just kind of cringe, like that Kelly Rowland scene was just a little cringe. It was okay. It was alright. Jason X, I need to revisit this one. When I watched it the first time, it was definitely like a what the fuck, like WTF watch. I think I need to get past the shock of how on the surface terrible it is. I need to get over that and then rewatch it. I mean, I don't know what they did with the budget. This budget had a bigger budget than 50% or 90% of the movies, but I was like, where did this money go? The sets look like shitty porn sets. The actors' like costumes were awful. I don't know where the money went in this movie, but it was very strange. It was like a sci-fi movie. These movies have been talked to death recently, so I'm not going to go super into it. But I want to give this a rewatch. I liked it a lot more than one of the other ones that are coming up on the list. Jason X was okay. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, 1.5 stars. This movie, man, I was not a fan of this movie. I'm not just going to dog it out and dog shit it, but there's no Jason in it. Him traveling from body to body. Basically, it's explained in the movie that, spoiler alert, fast forward about 20 seconds if you don't want to hear. Basically, this takes place in the world of Evil Dead, and Jason is a deadite that goes from body to body, and he has to be killed by the sword of whatever the hell it's called, a little dagger. This movie's a mess. The director, I listened to some of the commentary. What a jerk off the director of this movie is. Like, just an arrogant director that was chosen only because he was a family friend of Sean Cunningham. I don't know what this guy was thinking. What the balls on him to go in that direction. And finally, Red Eye. Dig these down and out slashers. And there's my buddy here, and I told him not to come until 7 because I was filming a movie. Matt, didn't I? Hey, buddy, did you get my text? Looks like they didn't go through. Okay. Oh, my buddy's here, so I'm gonna have to be continued. To be continued.
Are we shooting a video, man?
Yeah, I'm shooting a video. Why don't you say what's
cool.
up?
Hey.
I texted you and told you to come at 7, but that's okay, isn't it?
Am I in frame?
No, you're not in frame.
I'm looking good, man. Clean.
No, you don't.
Dude, put me on this channel.
No, you don't deserve to be on my channel.
Gee, I swear to God.
All right, now Red Eye. So Red Eye, I actually discovered. It's on Tubi, by the way, if you want to watch it. This movie, I looked at the reviews, and it just got absolutely used. It looks, people weren't very kind to this movie, but I respect the hustle of these two young filmmakers. I think these two kids made this movie when they were like 20-something, their early 20s. It's a slasher movie, kind of takes place in the woods with actually a pretty unique twist at the end, but I discovered it through a follow on Instagram. This, what's her name? Really cool horror follow. What is her name? Look it up. Looking it up. Living Dead Girl 97. She actually has a pretty good following on IG. So I went ahead and checked out their movie, saw it was on Tubi, and I gotta respect these kids for going out there and making this movie. I started to look at the reviews on Amazon, and people were just like trashing, and it's like, when I was 20 years old, I was getting shit-faced in my parents' fucking basement with my friends. Like, I wasn't out making a movie. So Red Eye is about a group of friends who go out to kind of investigate this old legend, and it kind of turns into like a document. They go out to kind of document this legend. And they go out to the woods to do it, and it turns out to kind of like this insane kind of horror movie. But kudos to those kids for going out and making that movie. Like I said, when I was 20 years old, I wasn't out making movies. So all these assholes that were shitting on them about the movie's good. I recommend it. Go support these independent filmmakers. Watch Red Eye. It's on Tubi. It's free. It's a good little watch. It's kind of got some pretty gnarly scenes. I was like, especially towards the end, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, they were really going for it, huh? So yeah, definitely, I'd recommend Red Eye. I really would. Kudos to them, like I said, for going out there and making a movie. And that's it. This little video ran a little longer than I anticipated. I try to keep things as brief as possible. When I start talking, I just cannot keep things brief. I just can't do it. I start blabbing and I just go and go. But that's all I got. I had a lot of fun talking about these movies. I think I'm going to do one of these every month. They won't be this long. This is 2 months worth of movies. So my thoughts are a little scattered. So when I don't have so many movies to talk about, I'll condense my thoughts a little bit more. But that was a lot of fun doing that. I'll do it again next month. Coming up within the next week, I'll have my most anticipated Blu-ray and 4K Steelbook release videos. So look forward to that, as well as a new video every day in October. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Stay weird, and until next time, bye.
I love movies. Gosh, I love movies. I love watching them, and I love making them.
Nah, I can't do it.